Welcome to the Ad Nauseam podcast, where classical gourmands everywhere can finally get their fill. Join us for a delectable discussion of Greco-Roman civilization stretching from the Minoans and Mycenaeans through the Renaissance and right down to the present. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here are your hosts, Dr. David Noe and Dr. Jeff Winkle.
Welcome, listeners, to episode 171 of the Ad Nauseam podcast. My name is Dr. Jeffrey T. Winkle. I'm down here in our relatively new bunker.
Yes.
With my good friend and excellent co-host, Mr. Dr. David C. Noe. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing real well. I want to know, what does the T stand for in Jeffrey T. Winkle?
Oh, am I supposed to tell the truth, or am I supposed
to say something absurd?
Let's say thorax.
Thorax.
Yes.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
How about the C over there? It's got something new for the C.
Well, I guess if we're going to keep it themed with thorax, it would have to be something like caput.
Kaput.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got it. I like it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, very good. But you're doing well?
That's a bad start, isn't it,
That's a bad start. Exactly. Let's it can only go up from here.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I'm doing pretty well.
Good.
It's nice down here in the bunker, right?
Nice and toasty.
It's warm. We got the heater going. We got the lights on.
Yep.
We got the mics. Everything is set up. This is not Vomitorium South. We vacated those digs, and now this is either Central or North.
Yes, I like Central. I like we've tried most of the cardinal points.
That's right.
And now we've just kind of come back to the middle.
And let's admit it. This is where everything began.
It's true.
Upstairs from here.
That's right.
Underneath a bedspread with two stools.
Yeah, I don't like talking about it.
Okay. What do you like talking about specifically today?
I like talking about Ovid.
All right.
This is one of these recurring themes that we've come back to. I can't remember. You sent me a list, but I can't. How many times?
Did you read it?
I read the list, but I don't remember how many times.
7 or 8.
Talked about Ovid over the last 4+ years now.
Yeah, we've got Peter Bruegel, right? The Icarus story, the famous painter. We did something on the Amores, Avid for Ovid.
Yep.
A little bit of love.
Yep.
We did Bacchus and Philemon.
Yeah.
On their way, comparing it to the Book of Acts.
Right.
We've done. We brought Ovid in for the Aeschylus episode. You remember Io Wanna Be a Cowboy?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
That was a fun one.
Yeah. But we've covered various vignettes. We've done.
Yes.
I remember doing Midas.
That's right. Atlas.
Orpheus.
Yes, we also did a little bit on Pythagoras, right? That was one that you entitled "No Meat for Us, Please." We're Pythagoreans.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that was a good one.
What do you know? Deucalion and the Flood.
Yeah, so Ovid has been a common guest on this podcast.
That's right.
Yeah,
he's a treasure house of material. The Metamorphoses with its 15 books.
Yeah.
Some 250 plus mythological stories.
Yeah.
He's the gift that never stops giving.
It's true. And so we're back today with a couple of more Ovidian vignettes.
Yes, some vignettes.
Yep. And so do we want to jump right in, or do we got some any kind of precursor? We should talk about this contest we're
I
having,
think
right?
we have a little bit of housekeeping to do at the forefront, and that is the contest. Maybe we should mention the contest, but hold off on the key word, the code word, the secret word till later in the program.
Good idea. Yep.
Yeah. So this contest is we are giving away a Ratio 4 coffee maker. Mm-hmm. This is the brand new item from Mark Helweg and the entrepreneurs out in Portland, Oregon. You have a Ratio 4, Jeff, at your office. How's it working out?
It's fantastic. I used it this morning. I love it. It greets me as I walk through the door, and I've already had a cup of coffee at home from my Ratio 8.
Oh, nice.
But sometimes you need that extra little boost, and so I have a nice cup from my Ratio 4 right before I go into class. Or sometimes I take it right into my classroom.
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing.
To make the students jealous.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I had some this morning too from my Ratio 4, and we're going to have to upgrade you, Jeff, a little bit.
Yeah?
Because you're probably using that beautiful smoky-colored glass carafe.
Yes.
Which is standard issue, right?
That's right.
It's gorgeous. It's one of the nicest things I've seen. However, if you want a thermal carafe, we're going to have to get you one of those.
I would like that.
I picked up an aftermarket one that Mark recommended, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite thing about the Ratio 8. Is that
hulking flagon.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
A family member asked me this week, so where's this going? She thought she was pretty clever. 8, 6, 4. I said, okay.
Okay.
Stop. That's enough. I'll dispense the absurdities.
Exactly.
I don't know.
That's right. It sounds like she was stealing your material.
Yeah, she was. We're going to the ratio -14. Right. That's where we're headed.
Right. Hey, I think we should save a lot of this for the ads. Right?
Okay. Yeah. I'm enthusiastic.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I got
If you want to win the ratio 4 that we are giving away in March, then what do they need to do?
They need to write to you, Dave at adnauseum.com. Don't forget the V. And you're going to have to tell Dave the secret code word, which we will drop later in the episode.
That's right. And the drawing is going to be on March 26th. We've got a firm date now. On March 26th, we're going to have PricewaterhouseCoopers or Deloitte and Touche look at our list of entrants and draw a name randomly.
Fantastic. Excellent.
Okay. So we're talking about Ovid today,
yep.
Jeff.
And I believe, Dave, you have an opening quote for us?
Yes, I do. And this comes from a really excellent book that we have referenced before on this podcast.
Yep.
And it is by one Elaine Fantham. It's titled simply Ovid's Metamorphoses, and it's from the Oxford Approaches to Classical Literature 2004 from Oxford University Press.
And it's got that Bruegel painting right on the front.
Oh, it's very nice.
There it is.
Yes. So many of you are serious students of the classics, and I hope you have come to love Ovid like we do. If you want to get some learned commentary on Ovid, I highly recommend this book. I'm sure it's still in print.
Yeah.
So by Elaine Fantham. So we're going to take a look at pages 110 and following. So Fantham says, this is the title of the section, Another Aspect of the Non-Human, Allegorical Personages. Quote, before Ovid, epic might offer a brief picture of abstractions like strife, which Homer depicts reaching from earth to heaven as she strides in battle attending on Ares in Iliad 4, or the prayers and sinful madness of Iliad 9. To persuade Achilles to accept Agamemnon's petition, Phoenix offers a moral allegory, describing prayers as, quote, daughters of mighty Zeus, wrinkled, lame, and squint-eyed, who take pains to follow madness, but madness is strong and swift, so that she runs ahead of them all and causes harm to men worldwide. Then they put things right in her wake, end quote. In the allegory, a man is rewarded or punished according to respect that he shows to these daughters of the god of justice. Then fast forward to the next page, says Fantham, the poet uses a similar technique, the poet being Ovid, to introduce hunger, summoned by Ceres through one of her nymphs to punish the blasphemous Erysichthon.
Yes.
This is Book 8. Like Minerva, Ceres cannot risk the contamination of approaching the negative spirit of hunger, so she describes to the nymph where to find her in an icy, barren region of Scythia, along with other evil beings, Chill and Pallor and Shivering. Her instructions are that hunger should enter the evil man, Erysichthon, and torment him. The nymph, who incidentally borrows Ceres' flying serpent chariot, finds hunger grubbing up roots with her bare nails and teeth hollow-eyed and so thin that her bones and joints all protrude, and she has a hole where there should be a stomach.
Yes.
So infectious is her aura that the messenger nymph begins to feel hungry and turns her snakes right around in retreat to Thessaly to the local Chipotle. No, I added that part. Hunger obediently, continues Fantham, hunger obediently seizes hold of the sleeping Erysichthon and fills him with manic and ruinous greed, end quote.
Yes. Wow, that's really well written.
So what do you think about Fantham? Has she kind of identified something important here in the Erysichthon story?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think that, particularly that scene where the summoning of hunger,
right,
and then the horror of what it does to Erysichthon is extraordinary, right? And so that's what, when she kind of compares it to Homer, it's that, Ovid kind of picks up he gets the handoff of the football from Homer, but he takes it to a whole other level, right? The cinematic portrayal of hunger, kind of dwelling out on the tundra of the Scythian plains.
Yeah,
it reminded me a lot of very Tolkien-esque.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
Something like Gollum, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep, perfect. Yep.
Well, Jeff, before we get into the details of our two vignettes, I think we need to give, after the opening quote there, which we hope you liked, we have to give kind of an intro, right?
Okay.
So we're talking about these two characters,
yep,
Erysichthon and Cycnus, or Cygnus. He's coming later in the second half of the program. He's my selection, but you chose Erysichthon.
Yes.
So first of all, can you give us a little brief summary, a synopsis, who this guy is, where he appears in Ovid, and then later on we have to see, can we connect him somehow thematically to Cygnus?
Okay, yeah, I'd happily do that. I want to first talk about why I chose.
Yes, please.
Erysichthon. So I I wanted to find some passage from Ovid that I was just simply not familiar with at all. And so kind of combing through, just kind of doing an overview of Ovid, and I came across the story of Erysichthon. And if I encountered the story in my past readings of Metamorphoses, I probably did, but it struck me as completely unfamiliar. So I wanted to pick something.
Wait a minute. So what you're saying is, out of the 250 plus stories, you might have slightly forgotten one.
Yeah. Well, I slightly forgotten way more than one.
Me too.
Right. So that brings me to my second point of why I chose this one is because it is so strange.
Right.
And it's such a weird, and it's a horror story. It's gruesome, and so I thought that's kind of right up my alley.
That's right up your alley.
Right? So that's why I chose
the strange, the weird, the gruesome.
Yes. So as to where this appears, it appears in late book 8 of the Metamorphoses, and it centers around this king of Thessaly, kind of north central Greece, Erysichthon, who is kind of in Ovid's version, kind of comes out of nowhere. And with an axe, and decides he is going to fell all of the trees in this sacred grove of Ceres.
Oh, wow!
Right. What's really quite striking is that many things are striking, but Ovid really gives no motive.
Yeah.
So there's another version of the story. The other more famous one, not more, but other famous one is from Callimachus.
Okay.
Which would have predated Ovid by quite some time. So in Callimachus's version, he sets it up. It's a subset within his hymn to Demeter.
Okay.
And says Erysichthon, he wants to build a feasting hall as kind of an addition, like a rumpus room to his palace.
Yeah,
right?
With the beanbag chairs.
Exactly right. Yeah, but apparently a room designed for eating.
Okay,
which of course makes sense with what happens.
Oh yeah.
But in Ovid's version, he leaves that detail out.
Okay,
and that always makes me wonder. Okay, clearly Ovid knew Callimachus, right? So why does he keep that motive hidden? That always signals for me that Ovid's up to something.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So he takes this axe, and we're
talking about Erysichthon.
Erysichthon
takes his axe.
He starts cutting down trees.
Okay.
And he gets to the large central tree in the middle. This towering oak, sacred to Demeter.
I could say something really grim here.
Please.
That you would like.
Okay. Yeah.
He goes all Lizzie Borden on them.
He does go all Lizzie Borden on that. Yes.
Surprisingly grim.
Yes.
But historical.
Yep. Exactly. 40 whacks. Right. As the rhyme goes.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes the axe to this central tree.
Okay.
And I don't know if I want to tell the whole story here, but
okay, because we want to get into it a little bit at a time.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
But then just the horrors keep piling up on top of each other after this. Right?
And the reason the horrors pile up, let me ask, is because the trees are sacred.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. And I think the fact that even Ovid leaving out the detail of he's doing this because he wants to build an addition to his house, makes it all the more kind of capricious. Why is it's the act of a madman.
I see.
Right.
So it's not that he's cutting down the trees because he's in need.
No,
he just wants a little extra space for the Rumpus Room.
Right.
He wants to have the guys over, and when they're watching the game, he doesn't want to bring out the TV trays for the platters of nachos.
Exactly.
He wants the built-in bar that's 25 feet long.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't have to walk halfway across the house to get the chips.
Correct.
He wants a place where they can be right on hand. Right?
And he wants some beautiful mahogany paneling to cover up the refrigerator.
Exactly. Okay. Right. So that I think.
So it's a picture of excess.
That from Callimachus's point of view.
Yes.
I think with Ovid frames it more as why is he doing this? My sense is that he sets up Erysichthon. He has no respect for the gods, and he's doing this simply to kind of show the gods who's boss.
Okay,
and I don't have to listen to you.
Right. Well, that's a very good introduction, Jeff. Thanks.
Yep.
And now you're going to read us some Latin, right? Some hexameters to get us going.
Yes. This is from Metamorphoses, book 8, starting at line 738 and following. Nec minus autoloci conjunx Erysichthon enata, Eurysabet pater huies erat qui numina divum, spernuret et nullos aris adoret odores, illa tiam ceriala nemus via lasi securi, digitur et lucos ferro temerasa vetustos.
Ah, very nice.
That's my favorite meter to read.
Musical.
It is. It's so wonderful.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Right.
And what does it mean?
Well, let me give a little translation here. This comes from A.S. Klein.
Hold on now.
Yes.
Hold on now. Who?
A.S. Klein.
Okay.
Yes.
This is a poetry and translation online.
Right.
But we're going to get later to Ambrose and Lombardo, right?
We are, because we love our friends at Hackett.
We do.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
But as far in a pinch, if you want to find a decent English translation of Ovid and many other works, Mr. Klein has lots of
He's helpful.
Yep. So I will translate those lines. Well, Klein will translate those lines, and I'll give you a little bit more. This is the beginning of the episode. Mestra, Erysichthon's daughter, the wife of Autolycus, had no less power. Her father was a man scornful of the gods, who burnt no incense on their altars. Erysichthon, it is said, once violated the grove of Ceres with an axe and desecrated the ancient woods with iron. Within them stood a great oak, massive with the years, a sacred grove in itself. Strands of wool, wreaths of flowers, and votive tablets surrounded it, evidence of prayers granted. Often beneath it, the dryads held their festive dances. Often also, linking hands in line, they circled its trunk circumference, its massive girth measuring 15 arm lengths round. The other trees were not less far below it than the grass was far below all of them. Triopas' son, that's Erysichthon, would not hold back the blade, even for those reasons, commanding his servants to fell the sacred oak. Right. So he sets it up here.
Yes.
It's nothing to do with a feasting hall. It's just that he has no respect for the gods.
Okay.
And he's going to show it in this very extreme way.
So no mahogany paneled refrigerator.
Right.
No beer taps.
No beer taps.
So it's really fascinating to me that Ovid's powers of evocative storytelling are on full display. Mm-hmm. He describes the tree right in the center is a sacred oak, which is a grove in itself.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then he describes how many, the size of it, with this subtle detail, it would take 15 arms lengths to circle it
right.
completely in circumference.
Right. And then also just the picture of the dryads holding hands and doing like a springtime around the maypole kind of dance. Right.
So thinking back to the time when you were just a little winkle.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite tree or trees as a kid?
I did.
Okay, tell us more.
Very, very large pine tree that grew between my parents' property and the people next door, and it was perfect for climbing.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time
Despite
climbing
the pitch?
What's that?
Despite the pitch?
No, yeah. That was a little off-putting, but all the way at the top, I got a great view of the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
And
it was your pine tree.
It was my pine tree.
Yeah. Did you have a sense of homecoming when you were stuck in its needly boughs?
It was, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a great peaceful place to kind of escape from everything. And I remember that very, very happily. And
led to you being a musician, you might say?
How so?
Perfect pitch?
Oh, wow, man. You are quick, my friend. Impressive. But less happily, not that long ago, I was out in Jenison driving through my old neighborhood, and I went by the old homestead.
Oh, no.
And all those wonderful trees have been cut down.
So an Erysichthon.
Yes, exactly.
Or his son, right? Tropeus, is that the fellow's name?
Tropeus' son, yep.
Got to them.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was very...
sorry, Triopas' son.
Yes.
Okay.
It was very sad to see. It doesn't seem to be... And there was nothing... that was built in their place. There seemed to be no visual reason to cut them down. But yeah.
I had some favorite trees as a kid. Thanks for asking.
Where were yours?
Well, we had a willow, a weeping willow in our yard. And you know that a really mature weeping willow has these long vines that hang down. Mm-hmm. And if you're a small child, you can pretend to be Tarzan from those vines, and I did.
And they would support your weight?
I was very small.
Okay.
And I wouldn't swing on a single one. I'd bunch them up.
Yeah.
There was also a really lovely cherry tree, very large cherry tree
on your property.
Yes, that had the kinds of branches you could crawl out on and sit from, and then drop off and so forth.
Yeah,
I think there's something about children and trees that is a unique fascination. I don't think that endures into adulthood for most people.
No.
I don't have the same affection for trees as I did as a child. How about you?
No, I know, not beyond just kind of the fond memories I have of climbing the trees. I mean, there was also another tree in a forest that was by the house I grew up, which again the forest itself is now gone. But I have a distinct memory of climbing to the top of that tree, and at the top of that tree finding all kinds of words and initials carved up there. So it was,
other people had been
there. And I find that kind of endlessly fascinating, right?
So not so different than what Ovid says about this sacred oak.
Yeah.
When he says that all kinds of offerings hung from it, right?
Yeah.
That is that's a detail that our listeners might not be familiar with. Could you explain a little bit more about what that means, right?
About like the tokens like hanging from the tree and all that? Yeah. I mean, there's lots of traditions in ancient Greece about trees being a locus of spirit and of divinity. Right. And just in my classes this morning, I was talking about Dodona and the sacred oak tree of Zeus that Zeus was believed to speak through. One of the traditions about it is that there were tokens and ornaments that hung from the tree, and when the wind would blow through, it would act like a wind chime.
Yeah.
And so the clanging of those ornaments was thought to be the language of Zeus.
The voice of the gods.
Right. So
right.
Here we see, not an oracle, but a very similar kind of
right.
of sacral quality.
We were there in 2011, remember?
I do remember.
14 years ago.
I don't like to think about that.
In the region of Epirus.
Yeah.
Yes, we stopped off at that coffee shop.
I do remember that.
I remember Dunkin' Donuts. So they have strands of wool, wreaths of flowers, and votive tablets surrounded it. So people would go to the sacred oak and they would hang things in its branches.
Yes.
So kind of similar to carving your initials.
Yes.
But I guess that's more an act of vandalism than just hanging something from the tree.
Right.
It's thought to be a sacred spot.
Yeah.
There's a numinous quality.
Definitely. But Erysichthon, he sees no value in that, does not respect this, and so he cuts it down.
Okay.
And or he orders his men to cut it down. And
right. Fire up the bulldozers, in other words.
But when his men hesitate, he gets very angry, and he actually beheads the man who tries to stop him.
Wow.
Right.
So some unnamed anonymous lackey.
Yes.
Right. Tries to stop Erysichthon's mad rage.
Right.
And he's like a red-shirted Star Trek individual. He's just
he's there to be dispatched.
Exactly.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Huh.
So he says the Thessalian glared at him. This is Erysichthon glaring at the man who tried to stop him, saying,
right.
"Here's the prize for your pious thought." So he executes him and mocks him for his piety.
Okay.
So there you have that kind of anti religion kind of aspect to it. Yep.
So you've got something here in the script which I especially like. It's a little bit of a quote from Callimachus. The Erysichthon's name means the Earth Ripper.
Yeah.
So say more about that, if you would, please.
So, I mean, in some ways, it's his name kind of describes who his name is his destiny, right? He's an Earth destroyer.
Okay.
So, and it's interesting, just doing some searching around I was always looking at what have other people kind of written and thought about this. And the story, it doesn't come up a lot. It's not a very well-known story, but when it does, it's often used in the service of environmental politics.
Sure.
And so Erysichthon is the Earth destroyer. And so he was kind of born to be an environmental disaster.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, there's a saying that before the arrival of Europeans to North America, a squirrel could travel from something like, from Maine to California without touching the ground.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure the extent of that comparison because there are some really long stretches in Oklahoma, for example.
No trees.
But maybe he could travel from Maine to the Mississippi at least.
Yeah.
Without touching the ground.
That's extraordinary. Yeah.
I don't know if a squirrel wants to do that, but he could have.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. So Erysichthon, he takes the axe and cuts down the tree itself. And then the tree, very creepily, begins to bleed.
Yes. So this is like Virgil and
yes.
What is the man's name?
That's what I was thinking about.
Polydorus?
Yeah, that's right. The bleeding vegetation.
Right.
Yep. So yeah, very much so. And then the dryad or the spirit of the tree then speaks. And here, let me read the Latin here.
Yes, great.
Yeah. Nympha sub hoc ego sum cerere gratissime ligno, quae tibi facto rompoinas instare tuorum, Vatiki nor moriens nostris solacia leti.
Lovely, lovely, lovely.
And
what does the translation mean?
Klein renders it, I am a nymph most dear to Ceres, under the surface of this wood, who prophesy to you as I die that punishment will follow blood, out of my ruin, the only good. So it's a curse.
Yeah, don't cut down the tree.
Yep.
Right? Or this is what's going to happen.
Right.
Here's the curse.
Exactly.
Huh. So what happens next?
So this is where the other dryads cry foul, and they go to Ceres, and they complain about what Erysichthon has done, and they demand a punishment to kind of follow up on this curse. And this is where we pick up what Phantom was talking about in the opening quote. And so Ceres says, I myself can't face hunger, fames, myself, but I need to, I'll send you to bring her back here. So, but before I get to that extraordinary scene with Fames,
which is the transformation, right? The actual metamorphosis.
Yes.
When Fames hunger overtakes Erysichthon.
Right. That's the first of a number of metamorphoses that happen. But this reminded me of, I was thinking of kind of modern corollaries.
Yep.
With him cutting down the trees, it reminded me of the Lorax. Do you remember the Lorax?
The Theodore Giesel book.
The Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
He speaks for the trees.
Yes.
Right?
I don't think I've read that one in quite a while.
Right.
I'm more of a butter battle guy.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, exactly.
Mocking the Cold War.
That's right. Yeah. I looked for an AI or an AI interpretation of the Erysichthon story.
Which AI did you go to? I'm guessing you're a Chat GPT guy.
It's whatever Google sends you to.
Oh, it's the Gemini.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. And it said, so I asked you, what is the Erysichthon story about? And it said it's about late stage capitalism.
Really?
That was the first one. Yeah, exactly. Right.
My adventures with, since you asked, my adventures with AI are funny. So occasionally I'll ask the Google Gemini a question like, how many days has it been since October 8, 2023?
Okay.
That's an important date for me. How many days has it been since October 8, 2023? It'll give me a quick calculation and say, oh, it's been 250 days. I say, wait a minute. That's not right.
That can't be right.
And I say that to the machine, and it replies, oh, yeah, you're right. We made an error. Here's the correct answer.
Seriously?
Yes, that's happened several times.
Oh, my goodness.
So what that means is, be careful what you believe when it spits it out. Maybe it's not about late-stage capitalism.
Yeah. Well, that's what it made me think of the Lorax. In that story, you have the guy that comes in. He's making all of these pieces of clothing, and he's selling.
He needs trees for them?
He needs trees.
Oh, so that's about late-stage capitalism.
Right. But the assumption is that this is just an ancient version of the Lorax.
I see.
But even more, more humorously, this reminded me of this event that's known as, or was known as, the Lake Forest Chainsaw Massacre.
I don't know about this.
Do you remember this?
Do I want to know about this?
It was
Lake Forest?
Lake Forest, which is an area north of Chicago, or northwest of Chicago. It's kind of a Tony area, lots of wealthy people there. And in the late 80s, Mr. T had a mansion and bought some property there.
No way.
Yes, and it was a wooded area.
Oh, no.
And he disturbed the locals by going out with his chainsaw and cutting down something like 60 to 70 trees on this old growth forest property.
Well, they were his trees.
Yes, that was his defense. He says, well, I bought these, I can do whatever I want.
And he pities the fool, right?
He pities the fool who would challenge him.
Right.
So the city council and the people of Lake Forest were up in arms for what Mr. T was doing. He just couldn't stop himself.
So he was the Lorax.
No, he was the opposite of the Lorax.
Oh, sorry, because the Lorax was...
He was the protector
against the late-stage capitalist who was harvesting all the trees to make clothing.
Right, exactly.
Interesting. So there was really no massacre.
A
massacre of trees.
He was similar to Erysichthon in that Ovid's Erysichthon, there doesn't seem to be any reason.
Yeah.
He wasn't clearing land to build something.
Not a rumpus room.
He was just chainsawing.
Although I bet Mr. T has quite the rumpus room.
Oh, he does. Yeah. Right.
Now, did his career tank after that? Or was it in full tank already?
I think this was like just post A-Team.
Yeah.
So he's probably still riding high-end residuals.
That's correct.
But I don't think he's been heard from since.
Yeah, I love it when a forest falls apart. Was that his...
It was his catchphrase.
His catchphrase.
Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So what do the horrified dryads do?
They go to...
What is a dryad?
A dryad is like a woodland spirit. I
thought it was something that you added to your laundry to give it like a...
Get rid of static cling?
Yeah. A nice woodsy smell.
Yeah. No, this is something different. This is a woodland spirit.
All right. So it inhabits trees. A dryad inhabits trees.
Yes, exactly.
And very popular among Celts, right?
Yes.
Celtic worshippers. Yes, all the spirits. So that druid and dryad, those terms are very closely related.
Right. It's kind of part of that kind of the animist view of the world. That every part of nature is infused with spirit.
Right.
Yep. So
even the podcaster's microphone?
Not ours.
No.
So Ceres sends a dryad up to track down Fames, hunger personified, because Ceres herself can't go face to face.
And where is Fames hanging out?
Way up in the north in the steppes of Scythia.
Huh? Does she have her own rumpus room?
I would imagine.
Okay.
Right. Oh, it's got an empty fridge in there, right? Something like that. But I thought the description of Fames was extraordinary. And
you're going to read us some Latin?
I'm going to actually, in the interest of time, I'm going to jump to the translation.
Don't skip the Latin.
Don't skip okay.
Don't skip. Read us at least a couple of lines.
All right, here we go. Hertis erat crinis cava lumine pallor in ore, labra incarna situ scabrai rubigine fauces, Dura cutis per quam spectare viscere possit.
Nice. Sorry.
No.
Keep going.
Yeah, also sub incur vis extabant aurida lumbis, ventris erat pro ventre locus pendere putares, pectus et a spinae tantum modocrate tenere.
Very nice, very nice.
Yes. And Klein once again. Her hair was matted, her eyes sunken, her face pallid, her lips were gray with mold. Her throat was scabrous sores. Through the hardened skin, her inner organs could be seen. Dry bones stuck out beneath her hollow loins. Her belly was only the excuse for a belly. Her breastbones seemed to hang loosely, only held by the frame of her spine. Emaciation made the joints look large. The curve of her knees seemed swollen, and the ankles appeared as extravagant lumps.
Whoa.
So then Phames flies down and carries out Ceres' orders and inhabits Erysichthon in his sleep. And he develops this is the most kind of horrific part of the story. And kind of inhabits him, and he develops this voracious hunger that can not only never be satisfied, but the more he eats, the more deep the hunger gets.
Oh, that's the real kicker.
Right. Yep. Did you ever read The Phantom Toll Booth? When you were a kid? No,
I've been through many.
You've been through a number of
without the little thing glued to the windshield that allows you to just run through.
You got to have that thing.
I'm always the guy who has to stop and dig through the car for the spare coins. Yeah, I'm that guy.
Yeah, I hate those Phantom Toll Booths.
But are you the kind of guy that Phames inhabits in your sleep?
No,
you don't wake up hungry?
I don't actually.
Really?
It takes me a while. Yeah, exactly. How about you?
No, I wake up ready for eggs and bacon.
Gotcha.
Pretty much every morning.
That's probably most people. I would think probably.
I don't know.
Yeah, but in the Phantom Toll Booth, in this children's story, the main character encounters this thing called subtraction stew.
Subtraction stew. So I think my kids have read this.
The more you eat it, the more you want it.
Oh
and
no!
So it's got this never-ending thing.
Subtraction stew.
Yeah.
Are there companion volumes to it?
To the Phantom Toll Booth?
Like multiplication broth?
Oh, I see. Gotcha. No, not in that book, right?
Okay.
But that's what it
Division
reminded me of.
smoothie, something like that.
So Erysichthon, he gets so desperate, and he ends up kind of selling everything he owns to get food.
Huh.
He's dismantling everything, and it comes down to he ends up selling his daughter, Mestra, which I thought this is clever. So
what is the daughter's name?
Mestra. Which is, I think this is clever on Ovid's part, is the passage of Erysichthon begins with her name.
Okay.
Mestra, not Erysichthon. Almost like this little, why are you mentioning her now? And then he drops it later. And this is an element of the story that Callimachus does not tell. So this might be...
Callimachus is only interested in the Rumpus Room.
He is, exactly.
Okay.
So this seems to be kind of uniquely part of Ovid's version.
Right.
And so he sells off his daughter as a slave. And she begs for help from Poseidon, who she was apparently she and Poseidon were lovers.
Okay.
And begs her for help, and Poseidon answers her prayer by turning her into a shapeshifter.
Nice.
And so when the guy who bought Mestra shows up to pick her up, she shapeshifts into like a man, kind of a stinky homeless beggar. Okay. And he says, "This isn't what I paid for." Right. And to escape from this torture. But then Erysichthon finds a way to capitalize on this.
Oh no!
And he decides that listen, she can shapeshift into anything. I can keep selling her in these different forms.
Late stage capitalism once again.
Exactly. And but
you think you bought a television at Best Buy, but when you get it home, it's a toaster.
It's a toaster, exactly, right. And so but eventually that runs out, and he's got nothing left. And he resorts to eating himself. Oof. And thus ends Erysichthon.
Autophagy.
Yeah,
which is really popular these days.
Is it?
Well, people who are into weight loss and health.
Oh, like the intermittent fasting.
Correct.
Exactly. They're not gnawing on their...
No. But they say, when you intermittently fast for a while...
Yes. Your body feeds on itself.
Your body starts feeding on itself.
Right.
So, that'd be a great name for an app to help you with intermittent fasting.
What?
Erysichthon.
Erysichthon.
It's a little long.
It is.
But
exactly. A little gruesome.
Yeah, okay, but memorable.
Right.
Memorable.
So
how is this if I can, we're close to wrapping up this portion, right? But how is this an apt punishment for whacking down a number of trees? Where's the connection?
I think, I think the easy answer is that it is Nemesis meets Hubris. Right. So
Can you say more about those strange Greek terms?
Sure. So hubris, it's often kind of translated in English as excessive pride, but from a Greek point of view, it is overstepping your bounds, not knowing your place, or not. In Erysichthon's case, it's knowing that you are not a god, and that you are below certain powers.
So you can't intrude on the sacred willy-nilly.
No. Exactly, and it was I think another vignette we talked about was Actaeon. Right? You can't even intrude upon the sacred accidentally,
right?
And so
Actaeon is the one who despised Diana bathing, and so he's the and then he gets his comeuppance by being turned into a deer
and torn apart
by his own dogs.
So here we have a guy who's just in your face, sacrilegious, and so. This horrific punishment of your devastating hunger leading to you devouring yourself is a fitting kind of nemesis punishment for the extreme hubris he performed. Yep.
Occurs to me, here's a potential episode title if we focus on Erysichthon.
Yeah.
Ask me no questions.
I like it.
What do you think?
I like it. Yeah.
We'll workshop it. You'll come up with something better.
Yeah.
We got 2 other versions, though, of this, don't we? We got the one by Callimachus, which has to do with the Rumpus Room.
Right. That's the most famous one. And so kind of the details that I would point out is that Callimachus gives him a kind of a personal motive,
right,
which Ovid leaves out, which I think allows Ovid to really focus on the sacrilege of it,
as well as the transformation.
Right. Exactly. So the transformation, then of course the added part with his daughter, who becomes a shapeshifter,
Maestra,
is another kind of a postscript with a number of more metamorphoses, right? And then but Callimachus leaves out the bit about the daughter altogether.
Okay.
And then Hyginus also has kind of a very short version of it that kind of has the basic.
Who is Hyginus?
Kind of a late epic poet.
Okay.
Yeah. But it has a short version of the same story with the basic elements of sacrilege followed by hunger and followed by self-eating. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, speaking of sacrilege and autophagy,
yes,
it's time for the ads.
Do it.
This episode of Ad Nauseam is brought to you by the good people, our good friends at Hackett Publishing, with offices in Indianapolis, Massachusetts, and Cambridge, Indiana. These folks have been bringing high-quality material. Jeff, you didn't notice that I switched the states?
What, you did?
Yeah, you're distracted over there.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to do some prep on the fly.
It's okay. The squirrel went from Cambridge, Massachusetts to Indianapolis, Indiana without
touching the ground?
Without touching the ground.
Nice.
These folks have been offering fine editions of the classics for what now, 53, 54?
54 years.
54 years. I'd like to read a little bit here from the back jacket, the blurb of Stan Lombardo's translation of the Metamorphoses. And guess who blurbed it?
Who did it?
Elaine Fantham.
Perfect.
The Geiger Professor of Latin Emerita at Princeton University. She says, quote, Stanley Lombardo successfully matches Ovid's human drama, imaginative brio, and irresistible momentum. And Rafe Johnson's superb introduction to Ovid's narratological paradise is a bonus to this new and vigorous translation that should not be missed. Together, introduction and text bring out the delightful unpredictability of Ovid's history of the world down to his times.
Yeah, wonderful.
Nicely said, Elaine.
Yes. It's nice to meet on the back jacket another fan of Mr. Lombardo's.
That's correct. Lainey is a fan. There's no doubt. And well, she should be, because this version of the Metamorphoses by our friend Stan Lombardo is dynamite.
It's fantastic. Yes. I'm hoping that in the second half you're going to be quoting from...
I am.
Excellent.
And maybe bring in a little bit of the, what's this? The Philip Ambrose translation of Ovid.
Yet another, also from Hackett.
So you're saying, Jeff, that Hackett has 2 separate but equally incredible translations of Ovid?
Yes, and this is very typical for this company. They will, you go to their website and you start clicking around, you'll find often multiple translations by different approaches, prose versus poetry. I love how Hackett kind of covers all of these things and doesn't just put all their eggs in one particular basket. Yep.
No. Yep. And for your students now, what are you teaching? Comparative religion or myth? Or
doing some myth, yeah.
Myth?
And
okay.
The Lombardo translation of the Odyssey. We're kind of halfway through it right now.
Okay. How are the students responding? What do they think?
They love it.
Okay.
They love it. And in fact, I even had a student this semester say, I wasn't looking forward to reading the Odyssey because I thought I'd done it in high school. I don't want to do it again.
Right.
He says, but I really love this version.
Awesome.
It's so great to hear. Yep.
Okay. So listener, you're thinking, I would like to purchase some inexpensive but high quality copies of the classics to add to my library so that on a cold winter's day, if you live in West Michigan, for example, You can curl up on the couch with a cup of coffee and a copy of your favorite translation and expand your mind. What should they do, Jeff?
They should go to hackettpublishing.com. That's HACKETT publishing.com. And you will find just a treasure trove of texts and that will not break your budget.
Right.
So high quality, attractive, and very, very affordable. Find the books you want, drop them into the little digital satchel. And Dave, what's our coupon code for these guys?
Well, the coupon code is AN, as in ad nauseum, and then the current year, which, if I'm not mistaken, is 2025.
That's
so
right.
AN2025, and what will that get them, Jeff?
Two wonderful things, 20% off and your entire order and free shipping.
20% off and free shipping. That's a steal.
It's a steal. This episode of Ad Nauseam is also brought to you by Ratio Coffee. These guys have been with us for quite some time.
Several years now.
Yeah, wonderful supporters of this podcast. And they are the makers of these wonderful, high-quality coffee machines that blew my mind. Before I got my Ratio 6 and then my Ratio 8, I didn't think that this was attainable. I thought that
you drank the, if I'm not mistaken, you drank the instant coffee, Stanka.
Stanka, exactly.
Stanka with the crystals where you drop them into the boiling water and some kind of thin gruel comes out.
Maybe that's why I'm not hungry in the morning.
That's right. Too much Stanka.
Stanka hangover, right?
Right.
But I always thought, okay, high quality, kind of high-end coffee, well, you got to get that from, the barn brewery or whatever.
Yes.
And it's not true. These Ratio Coffee has these incredible machines. I had the 6. I now have the 8.
You've been all the way through.
I've been all the way through.
I haven't had a 6, so you're kind of ahead of me.
You've had 8, and you also have the 4.
The 8, and now I'm strictly a 4 guy.
Right. And these are wonderful machines. And let me just read something.
Okay.
This is from fairly recent, in the earlier part of January.
Is this an interview that,
an interview
that Mark did?
By Emily Caldwell in a publication called The Manual.
Okay.
She writes, with the passion for combining timeless quality with modern technology to deliver exceptional user experience, Mark Helwig, who is the creator of Ratio Coffee, has established himself as a prominent figure in the coffee industry. Here's what inspired Mark to elevate the options available in the pour-over coffee market. Mark says, I've been in the Italian espresso machine business since 2009. I felt that drip coffee makers lacked the beauty and quality of espresso machines. With Italian machines, you can have someone bring in an 8-year-old machine that needs a new pump and some TLC, and it's back to brewing for another few years. But in the coffee maker space, it's typically a wall of basic stainless steel appliances snapped together in a massive factory in 9 minutes.
Wow.
Ultimately, this led Mark to ask the question, why must everything be disposable, ugly, and make terrible coffee?
He's talking about the squirty plastic.
He is.
That makes up the Dak and Blecker and the Senior Coffee and all of the other brands that we have mercilessly mocked for several years now.
It's no better than Stanka.
No, that's right.
Right. So, listeners, if you want one of these wonderful machines, do yourself a favor and go to ratiocoffee.com. Take a look at the 8, which is kind of the highest end. You have its little brother, the 6. And if you want one of these wonderful kind of small kind of portable machines for your office, check out the 4.
You like the 4 with the detachable tank.
Yeah,
right.
It's huge.
It's huge.
It's such a simple thing, but it's brilliant.
Yeah, and I really love the one-touch brewing and the high quality that comes out at the end.
Right.
That's it.
Exactly. So go to ratiocoffee.com/ad nauseum. Don't forget that V in the nauseum. And if you plug in this code, AN ratio, ANRATIO 2025, also the current year.
That's correct.
Dave, that will get them what?
That will get them a great deal off their order. I don't know the exact number.
It's 15%.
Well, no, I think it's either a flat fee of $20.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
See how bad a marketer I am? Or it's a percentage.
Yes.
So maybe one of our hardy, adventurous, coffee-loving listeners should go through the experience and give us some feedback. Exactly how much did they save?
Right. But whatever it's going to save you.
It's significant.
It's going to save you. Yeah.
And you're going to do 2 additional things. You're going to score yourself a great coffee machine, and you're going to support the podcast, which we really appreciate.
Yes. All right, Dave. So as we get back into it, we're in the second half, and now we're going to go to your chosen vignette. And you chose Cycnus or Cycnus.
Right.
Tell why this one?
We're going to switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
Yep. And so I chose Cycnus because, like you with Erysichthon, I didn't remember all of the details of the story. And one of the great things about doing this podcast, at least from our perspective, is that it is a constant. It presents a constant need, a delightful obligation. To keep our knowledge fresh and strong. we got to keep going back to the sources to excavate out the material and present it to our audience.
Indeed.
So this was a chance to, let me just kind of, hone up my knowledge of Cycnus.
Yeah.
I guess the other reason is that I spent a little time living in Mexico. Did you know that?
I did know that, yes.
Yeah, in 1995, from about January 18 to July 4 of 1995, actually.
This is before you went off to grad school, right?
Yes, and this is all true so far. Now, we may go off the rails a little bit. But I made many friends in Mexico, living in Juarez, and I enjoyed my time there. But one friend I really enjoyed meeting was a fellow named Swan Carlos.
Yeah, I know. You've kept in touch with Swan.
Swan and I, we've been close.
Exactly, right.
So it seemed like the character of Cycnus, right, was a natural choice to couple him with Erysichthon, your choice, for an Ovidian vignette.
Gotcha. I think Erysichthon would have probably eaten
there's no doubt.
Right?
Erysichthon would have been turning him into, I don't know, swan wings and swan drumsticks.
All of that.
The whole 9 yards.
Deep frying, you know it.
That's right.
All right, Dave, let's get into this passage.
Okay. So we're starting in Book 12. Book 12 is where Ovid tells the story of Cycnus. And he, like Erysichthon, so here's a connection, is a son of Poseidon. Mm-hmm. And he runs afoul. Get it?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he runs afoul of Achilles.
Yes.
So I'm going to start by reading here some of the Latin, just like you did.
Okay.
And it goes like this. So this is starting at line 70 of Book 12. Mm-hmm. Nec friges exiguo quid Achaica dextera posset, sanguina sense runt et iam sigea rubebant, litera iam letopro les Neptunia Cycnus, milleverdros deraratiam curdrin stabat Achilles, toteque pellia caester nebat cuspidus ictu, agmina per quacies aut Cycnum aut Hector acquirens.
All right, and Dave, what does that translate to?
Okay, well, I'm going to read here to you from the Z. Philip Ambrose translation, also by Hackett. This is page 275. We're in Book 12. Since she had announced the approach of the Greek ships and strong army, not unexpected does the armed enemy arrive. The Trojans ward off their landing and protect their shore. And first to fall in death by Hector's spear are you, Protesilaus, and for the pitched battles the Danaan host pays dearly, and in the slaughter Hector gains renown for bravery of soul. And the Phrygians felt with no little letting of blood the power of the Achaean right hand. Already the Sigean shore was growing red. Already Cycnus, Neptune's son, had sent to death 1,000 men. Already was Achilles in his chariot, pressing on and laying low whole enemy lines with the blow of his Pelian spear. And as he sought either Cycnus or Hector among the ranks, he met up with Cycnus. Hector to the 10th year had been postponed, and urged on his steeds, their shining necks weighed down by the yoke, and aims his car against the host, and brandishing with his arms the quivering spears, exclaimed, Whoever you are, O youth, take comfort for your death in this, that Haemonian Achilles cut your throat.
So he's doomed.
He's doomed.
He's very much doomed.
That's correct. Okay. Cycnus, of course, is a Trojan hero who's felling 1,000 men as he, wages war across the plain.
Yeah.
But Achilles has a bead on him.
Yes.
And gets to him before Hector because, as Ovid so cleverly says, Hector is delayed until the 10th year of the war.
Okay.
So as we get into his story then, Jeff, could you read the little bit from the back of the Lombardo translation?
Sure. Yes, the Lombardo translation has this wonderful glossary in the back, which breaks down biographical information for every character. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
And particularly helpful with Cycnus, because there are 3 Cygni in Ovid's Metamorphoses.
What is the name for a group of swans? It's not a parliament of owls.
What is a swan?
I don't know. It's a murder of crows, a regrettable of podcasters.
Right. We'll have to look that up.
Okay.
I feel like I should know this. But there are 3 Cygni in Ovid. In Book 2, we find a son of Sthenelus, a relative and friend of Phaethon, who is transformed into a swan. There's also in Book 7, there is a Cycnus who's Apollo's son, who's transformed into a swan after jumping off a cliff in anger. And then we have the one we're talking about in Book 12, who is the son of Neptune, king of Coloni, made invulnerable by Neptune, and killed by Achilles, and then also transformed into a swan.
Huh.
Right. So
Interesting.
Cycnus, the Latin word for a swan.
Yes.
Right. So we have 3 different etiologies for the
Fascinating.
for the origin of the swan.
Huh. I looked it up.
Yep.
While you were talking.
Yes.
And I was listening too.
Yeah.
And apparently swans can be called a herd,
Okay.
a bevy,
A bevy. I like that.
yeah, or a flock.
Okay.
That's a little mundane.
That's boring.
I'm seeing the 4th one here is it could also be called a lamentation.
A lamentation of swans.
I like that, don't you?
That's the one we're going with.
Okay, a
Yep.
lamentation of swans.
Right.
So it's which one is it here of the 3?
This is the one where he's a son of Neptune.
Son of Neptune.
And we also learned that he's like Achilles. He's
Right.
got invincibility about
Right.
him. Right. So we hear so often. Everybody knows about Achilles. Being
Right.
dipped into the river Styx.
the old heel dip by his
And-
mama Thetis.
And in the passage, right after the passage that you just read from Ambrose,
Right.
Cycnus does some trash talking and basically
Oh,
says,
yeah.
"You see this armor? This is just bling. I don't need it.
Right.
I can strip down and I'm still invincible."
Yeah.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
What's the difference between bling and swag?
I'm not exactly sure.
All I can say for sure is that they give off a different vibe.
Nice.
Yeah. So Cygnus is he's trash. He's trash honking, you might say,
Trash honking.
Yeah.
Definitely. Right. Exactly.
as a swan.
So in Lombardo's translation, Achilles throws a spear at him and it bounces off.
Okay.
And Achilles can't believe it.
Right.
And Cygnus,
Because he's kind of met his match.
right.
Right.
And so he's
They've
got
gone bill to bill, and it turns out that Cygnus is also invincible.
right. And he says he sees Achilles kind of jaw drop, and he
Right.
says, "This helmet with its golden hair crest and this shield on my left arm are not for protection, but mere decorations, like the armor Mars wears. Take it all off, and I am invulnerable still."
Wow.
It's something to be the son not of Nereus' daughter, but of Nereus' lord, Poseidon, who rules the whole sea besides. So now he's bragging about
Oh, wow. This had to enrage Achilles.
And if you think
But
about
what a great boast.
it is a great boast. If you think of Achilles' lineage, he has a divine mother,
Right.
but that is a kind of a minor water nymph.
Yes, she is. She's belongs on, I don't know, the outside of a tuna fish can or something like that.
And so here comes Cycnus, and he says, "My dad's Poseidon."
Right.
So he's rubbing Achilles' face in it time and time again.
Sea salt into the wound, you might
Indeed.
say.
Right.
But Cygnus, what a boast. If I had a dog,
Yeah.
I'd name him Cygnus.
Would you?
I think so.
That's a good name for a dog.
Cerberus is so trite as a
Yeah.
dog name.
Right,
Everyone's done that.
Exactly.
Cygnus is pretty good.
Nice. So what happens next, Dave?
Well, here I'm going to quote from Lainey.
Okay.
Elaine Phantom. She's getting a lot of airtime today because this book is also brilliant.
Is she still with us?
I don't know. She's emerita from Princeton. I think she is.
Okay.
But I don't know. So this is from page 98 of her work, Ovid's Metamorphoses. She says, quote, "The other hero who carries Ovid's narrative up to the siege of Troy is, of course, Achilles." So this is in contrast to Nestor. The first great hero of epic poetry, continues Phantom, Ovid did not set himself up to compete with Homer in artistry any more than he would compete with Virgil in presenting his hero Aeneas. Instead, Ovid focuses on one of Achilles' early triumphs, his combat with the supposedly invincible warrior Cycnus, son of Neptune. Cycnus is actually no more invisible than Cyneus, whom we met in chapter 5. Now, if you listener are wondering, who in the world is Cyneus? Come on. We just got to say, this book is filled with thousands of names.
Yes.
You need to buy it and read it.
There you go.
That's all we can say.
Right.
But says Phantom, but he is impervious to weapons. Achilles strips him of his helmet and strangles him with his bare hands. But as with Nessus and Hercules, the early combat introduces the first cause of Achilles' death. In Ovid's version, and this seems to be his own invention, it is Cycnus' father Neptune who now engineers Achilles' death by conspiring with Apollo to redirect the cowardly archer Paris against the hero. Urged on by Apollo, Paris shoots, and Apollo makes sure that his aim is unerring. So here, right, this is Ovid's invention, she says.
Yeah.
It is the death of Cycnus at the hands of Achilles that eventually plays out.
Sets his own death in motion.
That's correct.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not something I remembered.
No.
Yeah, after many years of studying and teaching on the epic. So
Right. Yeah.
Such a rewarding aspect of these stories that, there's so many layers of complexity.
Right. I mean, that reminds me of, Agamemnon in allowing his Iphigenia, his daughter, to be sacrificed, kind of seals his own death warrant.
Yes.
I mean, the Greeks and the Romans loved those kinds of.
They do.
That kind of, be careful what you wish for.
That's right.
Right.
If you become a part of the regrettable of podcasts, of podcasters, who knows what's going to happen?
Right. All right, Dave, why don't you read a little bit more Latin here as we get towards the end of this story?
All right. So this is from line 132, lines 132 and following. Again, we are in book 12. Says Ovid, haut tulit ulterius clipeo quad versa reducto, ter quater ora viri capulet cava tempora pulsat, cade antiqua sequens instat turbatque ruitque, atonitoque negat requiem power occupat illum, antaculosque natant tenebrae retroque ferrenti, auer sos passus medio lapis obstitit arvo, quem super impulsum resupi no corpore cignum, vi multa verte terrae quad flixit Achilles.
Very nicely done.
So right down to the end there, with Achilles being the last word in the line there, line 139.
Yes.
What does Lombardo say about these lines? How does he take them?
So here, Achilles and Cycnus have been trading spear throws.
Okay.
And now Achilles has had enough.
That's a very Homeric thing to do, isn't it?
It is, right? And then also
lob a spear, lob another spear.
Trade insults in between spear lobs, right? And so here, Achilles has had enough, and he jumps from his chariot and goes right for Cycnus. Lombardo. The Greek could take no more and began pounding Cycnus' head and face with the hilt of his sword and his heavy shield, always pushing him back, giving him no time to breathe, no time to recover. Cycnus began to panic. Shadows swam in his eyes. Stepping backward, he stumbled on a stone, and Achilles smashed him down to the ground. Kneeling on his chest and pressing down hard with the edge of his shield, he unbuckled the strap of Cycnus' helmet and used it to choke him, cutting off both breath and life. But when he started to strip off the armor, he saw the armor was empty, for Cycnus' divine father had transformed his son into a swan, whose name he already had.
Ha! Nice.
So, kind of like Erysichthon is that he's the Earth Ripper.
Right.
Cycnus was kind of destined to become a swan.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. That's really incredible that he strips off the armor and there's nothing there. Right. Because he has changed into a bird and flown away.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this has to make Achilles really angry.
Very angry.
Because when you kill a man in the Homeric world, you have to be able to strip his armor,
right?
Take his Rolex,
exactly,
his iPhone 15,
yep,
maybe his Montpelier pen, something like that.
Yeah,
got to have some. Is it swag
or bling?
Bling,
both. Yeah, and then pile these things up outside your tent so everybody knows how awesome you are.
That's right. It's like when you go to an academic conference, which I understand you did recently.
Well,
although virtually.
Virtually, I did. Yes.
So you attended the is it the Society for Classical Studies?
It was
SCS.
Yes, exactly. But the Swan.
No.
Oh yeah, the SCS.
Yeah, it used to be the APA.
Right.
So this was in Philadelphia. Is that where it was held?
It was. Yep. Our friend Young Kim.
Oh yeah.
Well, he was there and. He attended the session in person, and he was badgering me via text message while I was trying to speak.
While you were attending virtually.
Yes.
Figures.
Yeah.
Did you lob some spears at him?
I tried.
Okay.
I tried. Yeah.
Right. So when we attend those events, here's where I'm going with this.
Mm-hmm.
I used to attend quite a few. What do you get for attendance, right? There's some swag, isn't there?
That's right.
What's the best swag you've ever gotten from an academic conference?
Well,
That's kind of a low bar.
It is a low bar. I think the best thing I got once was maybe a T-shirt.
Yeah, I got a thumb drive once.
Thumb drive, I've gotten those too.
Themed thumb drive back when memory was expensive.
Yeah, mouse pads.
Yeah, maybe a book bag.
Yeah,
a little canvasy book bag.
Right. So in the room where all the publishers are displaying their wares, they will often have a little basket. Take a token.
Take one. Take a pen.
Yeah.
So it's similar to, you might think this is a stretch, if you're a Homeric hero and you dispatch your enemy on the battlefield, Sarpedon or Glaucon or someone.
Yeah.
You take his stuff.
Yeah.
You go to an academic conference and you give a good paper. You take some stuff.
You take some stuff.
But Achilles here was cheated out of that,
right?
Because Cycnus turned into a swan.
Yeah. So I think this kind of gets the last laugh. To a degree.
The last honk.
The last honk. Right.
So I don't think that swans honk, but all I can think of is geese. So I don't really know.
Right. They sing a song at the end of their life. Right.
I should have asked Swan Carlos. So how do you think this lines up with Erysichthon? Is this nemesis? Is this hubris? Here the transformation is not a punishment, but a rescue.
It's a rescue. There's an overlap in that Poseidon rescues Mestra to some degree Erysichthon, but his daughter,
Right.
by giving her the power of shape shifting.
Right.
We have, of course, an obvious transformation from human to animal, which is is common throughout the Metamorphoses. But what do you think? I think, like you were saying, I think what the story is about it presages Achilles' death.
Yes.
Right? And the fact that he's cheated out of his reward is just another foreshadowing that bad things are coming for him.
That's another insult to his enormous arte.
Yeah.
Briseis is stolen, right? Which I guess took place after this event, because this is when they're first landing on the shores of Troy.
Right.
But it's the first salvo, you might say, in a war of insults that Achilles has to endure.
Yeah.
Well, that's the story of Cycnus, and I guess my only summary word is that the transformations in Ovid, right, they can go one of two ways. They can be a rescue, like with Cycnus, which always has a negative consequence for someone else, namely Achilles, or they can be a degenerative punishment. In the case of Erysichthon.
Exactly.
Your choice. Do you have any closing comments on these two vignettes?
I would only say is that this makes me want to do more Ovid.
Right.
I want to explore more of these stories that I read them, and my first reaction was I don't remember that.
Right.
It was so much fun to read that story and to dig into something that felt very, very new.
Yeah.
And you
I'm
always
with you.
he packs so much into his poetry. It's just a delight to read.
Yeah. Have you undergone any metamorphoses in your life? Either of the degenerative or the saving type?
Both. Across my life, because lots of different changes.
Can you give us a not too controversial example of one of them?
Let me see here. I think that the transformative experience of graduate school was both kind of rescuing but also degenerative at the same time, right?
I'm going to use one of your terms here, which I've grown to love.
Yes.
Can you see it coming?
Is it liminality?
It is liminality. I have grown to love it because you're half student, half teacher.
Right.
Prior to that time, I was 99% student.
Yeah.
I did tutor a couple people in college, but I was a student.
Yep.
Grad school, you've got 1 foot in each camp.
Right, and they throw you into it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take this.
Right. I'd studied Latin for maybe 3 semesters. Okay, here's your own class. Now teach it.
Yeah.
What?
Right, exactly.
Highly liminal.
It is.
Yeah, so transformative. So I'm gonna cheat and use your example.
Okay.
Because grad school, I think, is one of those transformational places.
Absolutely. Yep.
Both degenerative and freeing in some ways.
A crucible in a way that I found my undergraduate years were not.
No. Now there was a lot of fun in the undergrad years.
Yeah.
Grad school, I wouldn't describe it as fun.
No.
I think crucible is the right term.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But Dave, we got to get out of here.
Yes, we do.
Because do you hear that honking outside the door?
I do hear some honking or lamenting.
It's lamenting, yes.
Trumpeting. I don't know what's going on up there.
Well, I just got a text.
Oh, you did?
It's the Trumpeter Swan Society.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
The TSS?
The TSS?
How did they get your cell number?
I have no idea.
Huh.
I don't know. But apparently,
probably Swan Carlos.
they sent me something about their 9th annual symposium coming up, right?
Wait a minute. Is this a real organization?
It's a real organization.
Tell me more.
Right. Well, they are very much involved in the research of kind of more fringe species of swan. You got the black-necked swan.
What?
They are concerned
There's a black-necked swan?
There is.
Did someone punch him? What happened?
I have no idea. Never seen him. Never seen one of those.
Okay.
They are concerned about the number of swan deaths in Xiaoping, China, which apparently they have a big problem over there.
No.
So the list of things that they are involved in and funding is immense, and it's all swan centered.
That's incredible. Yeah. The Trumpeter Swan Society.
Right. Which doesn't explain why they need this space. I don't know why they're going to get in here.
That's kind of a mystery.
Right.
It is a pretty safe space, though.
It is.
Down here in the bunker.
I guess
right.
You could discuss birds down here.
Yeah, this is as bunkery as our last vomitorium. Maybe even more so.
More so. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if they have any interaction with E.B. White.
Oh, you're talking about, is it the Trumpeter Swan?
The Trumpet of the Swan.
The Trumpet of the Swan.
Yeah, that great children's book. I think White also wrote that other book about the human beings that give birth to a mouse.
Oh, yeah, Stuart Little.
Yeah.
Boy, that's so creepy and strange.
You talk about liminal.
Very, right.
That's
and it's
disturbing.
And it's never addressed in that book.
No, I would think it's okay if I can't remember I guess they're the Littles, Mr. and Mrs. Little.
Yeah.
Which is also a very strange coincidence. It would be something if they, rescued and adopted a stray mouse that happened to have unusual intelligence and other abilities,
Right.
like driving a car and dating Barbie doll-sized people.
Right.
But this is their natural
It's
child.
their natural child.
Yeah, that is very
And it's
disturbing.
never addressed.
No.
No, it's very
Maybe
odd.
that's a topic for another Ovidian vignette.
I think so.
There's got to be something like that in Ovid,
Right. Yeah.
I would think.
That would be worth tracking down.
So the TSS, the Trumpeter Swan Society,
Yep.
wants to get into the vomitorium.
Exactly.
So we need to beat a hasty retreat and let them in.
But before we do, Dave,
Yes?
would you tell us about if our listeners want to learn some Latin and Greek or
yes.
or, both, either? What should they do?
I can help them. Well, you heard Jeff read some Latin hexameters today beautifully on the podcast. And if you go to my site, youtube.com/Latin per diem, you can hear me reading Latin, hexameters, Greek hexameters, more than 2,100 free 4 to 6 minute videos to get into the actual languages. And that, as Jeff can attest, that brings tremendous satisfaction.
Indeed.
When you can read these languages originally. Go to latinperdiem.com. Actually, very soon we're going to drop the Moss Method website. Not the Great Greek course, but the website. And Latin per Diem will be a one-stop shopping for all of your courses. Check out my offerings in Latin. I have master classes. You want to read some Cicero, some John Calvin, Theodore Beza. These are less than $100 a piece. You can watch and interact with me as I am teaching other students. So many of the benefits of a traditional classroom and my instruction, but much less of the pressure being on the spot. So go to latinperdiem.com, please, and check out some of those offerings. Jeff, what if they want to send us an email? They've got a corrigendum. They want to complain about the many bad puns you've been dropping throughout the whole episode.
Yeah.
What should they do?
Well, if they want to complain to me, they can
Okay.
write to Jeff@adnauseum.com. Don't forget the V. And you can write to Dave at adnauseum.com. Don't forget that V. And complaints,
Yes.
accolades, praises,
Criticisms, rebuttals, corrigenda.
ideas for a show, things you'd like to hear. Just let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. So you know our email handles now. And, did we ever drop that code word?
No, we got to do that.
Okay, so here it goes. If you send to dave@adnauseum.com this code word, quatuor, which is the Latin word for 12. What is it, Jeff?
4.
4. Okay.
Yes.
QUATTUOR. Your name will be entered in the drawing for the free ratio 4.
Yes. Take advantage of this.
You don't want to miss
You
that.
do not want to miss it. Yep.
All right. And Jeff, we need to thank some people.
As always, Mishka, our wonderful engineer, so thankful to her.
So much skill.
So much skill, and she does it quickly and expertly. Always makes us sound way better than we actually do down here in the bunker. And how about Scott Vincent and Ken Tamplin?
Yeah, the great bumper music, the screaming guitar arpeggios, which some people say, oh, that's not very classical. Well, okay. You don't have to like everything, but what appeals to you and me about that, I think, is the tempo, right?
Yes.
It's upbeat.
Exactly.
It's a little bit incongruous with the dry, erudite, academic discussion. Let's just have some fun with it.
Exactly. That's what it's all about.
So thank you, Scott, for sharing that music with us, and Ken as well, the bumper music for the ads. Very generous.
Yep.
Now, you can go to our website and get yourself a Quai Docent t-shirt, which shows that you are picking up the classics or taking them in
And keeping them down.
That's correct. Or maybe a hat. Jeff, what are we doing next week, 171?
I think it's a TBA, but I've got some ideas that I'll share to you off mic, and we'll go from there.
We got some great guests coming up, too, including a famous British scholar, a man named Peter Ceres. Now, it could be his name is pronounced Ceres. I don't know. We're going to find out when we get him on the air. He wrote a fantastic biography of the late Roman Emperor Justinian.
Yeah.
And I got in touch with Professor Ceres. He's at one of the British universities. We're going to have him on the program, and he's going to tell us all about Justinian. So this is something to look forward to.
Fantastic. Yeah, I can't wait. Yep.
All right. And Jeff, I think you have the gustatory parting shot, do you not?
Yes, and I am going to quote from Voltaire.
Oh, really?
Who apparently once said, "Ice cream is exquisite. What a pity it isn't illegal."
What?
I have no idea what that means.
Those Frenchmen,
they're crazy.
They say profound things, but sometimes I don't understand.
Me either. Thanks for listening.